Okay, we are live now. We can start.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Energy, welcome you all to this Friday live session on animal welfare. I am your host, Martina Borkakoti. I am a student of MA, second semester, Department of Women Studies in Guwahati University. I would like to introduce our today's eminent speaker, Ambika Shukla, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
She is trustee of Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care Center. Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care Center is India's oldest and Delhi's largest all-animal shelter. So today we are going to discuss about the topic animal welfare is human welfare. For the audience who are new to our platform, I would like to introduce briefly about Enajori to them. Enajori is a non-profit platform and aims to promote various initiatives that attempts to bring social change, sharpen leadership skills, and build entrepreneurial capabilities in Assam as well as the entire Northeast. Through the webinar series, which was started in July 2020, we try to build a network among people in the Northeast by inviting speakers from various fields to join us in. Further, we will get to know more about the organization. I would like to start our today's session with the opening speech by Ambika ma'am. Ma'am, please introduce yourself to the guest.
Hi, I'm Ambika, and I work with People for Animals. I used to be at the Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care Center for many years, but now I am no longer handling it hands-on, but I remain involved on a not on a supervisory level, but on a more on an emotional level. Since I've been there for many, many years, I remain tied to the place, emotionally, and especially to the animals I've known and cared for. So animal welfare is what I do. Animal welfare is what I love. And animal welfare is what I hope to encourage more of you to join and do.
Great, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your warm words. Now we would like to begin with our question hour session. So the first question is, would you like to tell us about your journey since childhood to now, specific to how you got involved with animals?
You know, there was no specific incident or there was no specific method to what happened. It is just something that has evolved naturally. None of us in India, unfortunately, there's never been any training for animal welfare. There's no educational institute that you can join for it. There is no facility where you can actually learn about it. It's something that people do on their own, more or less. And we all learn as we go along. So the same thing happened with me. I was greatly influenced by Mrs. Gandhi, Mrs. Menaka Gandhi. And she has been the sort of inspiration and guiding light, more or less. Her writing, her teachings, her example, her actions on ground. So, you know, she has remained the guiding force in my work. And I do whatever I can. I learn as I go along. I read, I research, I actually work on ground. So that is my involvement. It hasn't been goal oriented. It is something that has happened organically, actually.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. We move to the next question. Please share, ma'am, your personal steps you take to ensure health for the animals.
I have 17 dogs in my own home. These are all rescues that some of them have been brought from the Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care Center, some are off the road, some are from other shelters. Every time there's a dog that, you know, has nowhere else to go, then I say, you know, I can't do anything else but take him in. So I have collected 17 and it's a varying population. The most important thing you can do for dogs is to understand them. We don't take any time to understand them. We expect them to understand us. You want the dog to know when you're busy. You want the dog to know when you're unhappy. You expect the dog to know when you need a hug. And dogs seem to know that instinctively. But we never take the time and trouble to understand what is the dog saying, what is the dog wanting, what is the dog needing. So a lot of effort needs to go, or at least not a lot of effort, but at least some effort needs to go into that. People who keep, for example, pets and keep them tied up, it's a really horrible thing to do, because dogs don't ask for much, but personal freedom is one of the things they value most. So if you are keeping a dog, you must keep him free within your house. He should have the same freedom that you enjoy. If he wants to sit on the sofa, let him. Cover the sofa with a cloth so he doesn't dirty it, but don't forbid him. If he wants to go in and out of the room, yes, it's annoying to have to open the door again and again, but think if you were locked out and couldn't come in. So take the time and trouble to fulfill his little needs. He doesn't ask for much. He doesn't ask for entertainment. He doesn't ask for an education. He doesn't ask for clothes. He doesn't ask for shoes. He doesn't ask for travel, nothing. So the little things he does ask for, which is a little bit of love, a little bit of consideration, food on time, vaccinations on time to be able to protect him against parvo and distemper, which are really awful illnesses. And take your dogs for walks. I take my dogs off leash. I don't take them on leash, because again, if your dogs are not, if they're not ill-treated, dogs never harm anybody. So I am fully confident that my dogs never will harm anybody. So I'm capable of taking them off leash altogether, 17. And they come with me to the park and they go back with me from the park. And they've never harmed anybody so far, touch wood, and they never will, because they've always been treated with love and respect. And that's what the best thing you can do for animals is treat them with love and respect. Understand them, understand their needs, and behave accordingly. Behave with consideration.
Yes, ma'am, you are right, ma'am. Can ask a little about the Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care Center.
The Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care Center is actually India's oldest and largest all animal shelter. It was started in 1980 by Mrs. Gandhi. And at that time, it was situated in a place that seemed far off from everywhere else. But now it has become just another part of Delhi. It's been all built up around it. So it's no longer, far away from the madding crowd, as it were. It's right in the middle of the madding crowd. So that has its advantages in the fact that you don't have to go so far to find help for animals. When I was there, we used to have a 24-hour free, it's a 24-hour facility. It's the only facility in Delhi that is open 24 hours. And that's because animals need help all the time. Animal emergencies don't stop just because it's night. Animal emergencies don't stop because it's a holiday. Animal emergencies don't stop because it's a birthday or a national, Republic Day or anything. Animal emergencies carry on throughout. So it's very, very important to have facilities that are open all the time to handle or offer some kind of help. So the Sanjay Gandhi is that kind of hospital, come shelter. It operates an ambulance service. It has separate distemper sections, separate parvo sections, which are really important because you have these viral diseases that are as contagious as COVID was for us. So you need to separate those dogs from other dogs. It has cattle that come in the most horrific conditions from the road, where they meet with accidents. They eat plastic, their tummies are distended. So we have, the Sanjay Gandhi is the kind of shelter where anything a city throws up, it has to cope with, whether it's pigs, whether it's, at one point we even had a bear. So, we have everything from cats, birds, mice, rabbits, camels, cattle, dogs, you name it, and whatever the city throws up, the hospital has to rise to the occasion to deal with.
Yes, ma'am. We move to the next question, ma'am. Please tell us about your experience and the around in center.
Sorry, experience?
Please tell us about your experience and the around in the center, Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care.
My experiences are many. I used to be there from early in the morning, from about 8:30, 9 o'clock, till about 100 o'clock, till whenever there was an emergency, I was there. Sometimes I was there all night. Sometimes I used to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. But whatever the day brought, every day, there was no day, no one day like another. Every day brought different challenges. I found that the important thing to do was to teach people how to look after animals, because a lot of people don't understand. They tie a dog's mouth, for example, when you need to keep a dog's mouth open who's suffering uh, from fever. For example, if you tie a dog's mouth up who has already got high fever, he will collapse, because the tongue is where dogs regulate their temperature from. They don't sweat from the skin like we do, they sweat from their tongue. So if you tie up a dog's mouth, he's in trouble. Similarly, a lot of people don't understand that, when a dog has skin infection, you should not bathe that dog. He's probably got that skin infection because of overbathing. Dogs don't need to be bathed often. They need to be bathed only once in 6 weeks. That's the most you should do, because again, they don't sweat from their skin. So I found at Sanjay Gandhi, what the most important thing to do was to teach people how to handle dogs. Most people don't even know how to pick up dogs, even though we've lived with dogs for the last, hundred and thousands of years. Not many of us have taken the time and trouble to actually learn about animals. What is a chicken like? How does a chicken like to be lifted or not? Does a rabbit feel hot or cold or neither? How does he cope? How does a camel, where does a camel like to be scratched? Does he like to be scratched under his chin? Does he like to be touched behind his ears? What? We hardly take the time and trouble to ever learn. So I would, that was my role at Sanjay Gandhi, was to actually keep the place running and learning. We used to keep learning about things. We used to, we used to ring up. I used to ring up doctors in Rajasthan to understand about camels when we got in camels. I used to ring up somebody else to learn about rabbits. I used to ring up, perhaps a foreign vet to learn about kidney disease. So the thing about animal welfare is that you need to keep learning. You can't say, I know it all. Because medicine progresses, you have to keep up with it. You have to find out what's a better way to do things. There's always a better way. And I find that vets especially need to understand that they can always learn and they can always do better. They should never think that they know it all. Because once we reach that stage where vets say they know it all, you find that there is no progress. There has to be an understanding of learn every day. And I think that was what my experience was at Sanjay Gandhi. I learned something new every day from working there, from being with the animals, from bringing in wounded, tired, sick, diseased, abandoned, frightened animals. And one of the most heartbreaking things I found over there was when people abandoned their pets. I used to counsel people against that, when people used to bring in their pet and say, oh, this dog is very old, now he needs a place to rest. And I would say, because the dog is old, he needs his home. Imagine if you at the age of 80 were thrown into a new place with new people who didn't know you, you didn't know them. Would you feel comfortable? No. If the dog is old, that's when he needs his family the most. So that's another thing for people to understand, that don't abandon your pets. And those pets used to, be so heartbroken. They would sit in the corner just looking at the gate for the longest time. And at some point, you found the hope in their eyes even die, because they thought somebody was coming back for them. And at some point, they realized nobody was coming. And that's when they lose hope and heart, and then they stop eating. And then it's a very slow and painful end. So don't ever do that to your pet, that who you've lived with, loved. Don't ever do that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing us. So we move to the next question. What type of challenges that you sometimes face in your work?
What are the challenges? The challenges are mainly ignorance and the refusal to see simple solutions. When something can be simply solved, lots of people don't want to do it. For example, we take, for example, dogs. Now, a lot of people object to feeding of community dogs. They don't understand that feeding is actually part of the solution. Dogs are naturally friendly animals. You show them a little bit of kindness and they'd respond with love and loyalty. When the municipalities in India started the animal birth control program, which is sterilization and vaccination of dogs. Now, what happens with dogs is that if they are frightened, they will be very hard to find, because the frightened dogs will hide. They hide in nalis, they hide behind bushes, they hide, and they run so fast that you can't catch them. So what was the best way to tackle this problem is by starting to feed them. Once you start feeding dogs regularly, they trust you. And that's how all the sterilization that has taken place in India so far, 80% of it has been through feeders. And feeders are the ones who've taken responsibility for this program, and they are the ones who are carrying on with it. And that's why feeding is so important. But most people do not even understand the role that feeders play. They look upon it as, because you're feeding them, that's why there are dogs. That's not true. These dogs are not produced by feeders. They are not brought by feeders anyway. They already exist. Since they already exist, what can we do best? We need to sterilize them so their numbers don't increase. And secondly, that no more dogs are born into suffering and homelessness. So we put dogs through a really major operation. This is not a benefit to the dogs. We're doing it for our own convenience, that their numbers don't increase. It's also a benefit for them in the sense that they don't have to suffer more cruelty. But at least it is mainly for our benefit. So we put dogs through a major operation, but we need to do it with kindness, and we need to be able to feed them, pick them up gently, put them into proper ABC centers where they are cared for, where they are operated with great expertise, where they recover nicely, and when they are released, they should be released safely back into the same areas. So our responsibility is to ensure that the program goes well. So that is one of the biggest challenges. People who do not see the importance of the program, who do not know how to run it, they're first people who are opposed to the program, which is opposed to feeding. So that is one of the biggest challenges. The second is people who do not conduct the ABC program properly. Careless doctors, illiterate staff, or untrained staff, people who are cruel to the dogs in their care. That is a huge challenge. So what we need is training centers for the ABC program. What we would like is to have training centers where staff can be trained, where doctors can be trained, where feeders can be involved, where the municipal officials can be educated better. And we need to make it a unified whole so that it works very smoothly. In places where it's been implemented well, you will find it's been extremely successful. Guwahati, for example, is rabies free. So is Jaipur, so is Sikkim, so is Bhutan. Every place that the animal birth control has been implemented well, you will find extremely successful results. So that is the second challenge, is better training. So education, training, consideration, and better vets. We need better vets in India. Our biggest challenge in animal welfare is not to have enough good vets. So I think veterinary care is the biggest challenge that we face. I can't hear you, Delhi. Hello? I can't hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
1 minute. I'm just going to my 17 dogs. 1 minute. Just close the door. Okay. All right. Yeah. Tell me.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. We move to the next question, ma'am.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what is the reason? Yes, ma'am. What is the reason for increased animal cruelty?
What is the, what is the,
Reason, reason,
what is the
reason
reason
for
for
increased
increasing
any.
animal cruelty? Okay, I think
Yes, ma'am.
the reason is a space crunch. You know, because as the human population increases so much, we are becoming increasingly intolerant. We don't, you know, in old India, for example, every village had gochar land, which was land for grazing. But as we wanted malls, petrol pumps, residential colonies, theaters, resorts, spas, hairdressing salons, gyms, everything, the first thing to go was animal land. So now there are no places for cows to graze. So you use them for milk, but you won't provide any place for them to graze. So they are kept in dirty little slums, tied up the whole night, and uh, uh, just you know, ill-treated. So we've, you know, the reason for increasing cruelty is a space crunch and attention crunch. 70% of India depends on animals, and yet we make no provisions for them in terms of facilities. We don't provide for them for in terms of their care. We don't provide in terms for their medicine, medical needs. We don't provide ambulances. We don't provide anything. The government spends less than 1 rupee per animal per year. So, you know, they're not a priority, unfortunately, for most governments. Even though 70% of India depends on animals, we make no provisions for them. So we use them, but we don't care for them. We haven't made any facilities for them. Our cities have so many animals, but we don't make provisions for horses who we use as ghoda garis. We don't make provisions for cows who we use for milk. We don't make provisions for uh, any kind of animal that we use. We continue to use them, but we don't ever look at what they need. There's not even enough. We don't even put out water on the highways. When you have bell garis going, we have ghoda garis going, but there are no provisions for water. So people will carry their water, they'll drink, and they'll stop at restaurants, and there are restaurants nicely marked for people, but there are no provisions made for animals. You see anywhere marketplaces that have ghoda garis and bell garis coming, there are no. In old India, this was not the case. Old India used to make provisions for animals. There used to be piaus. You know, every place used to have an animal watering, you know, big cemented areas where they were water for the animals. Wherever people stopped, there were always provisions for their animals to drink, to be fed, to be rested under the shade. But it's no longer the case. So we seem to have lost touch with animals, and that's the reason for increasing cruelty. It's become a very selfish attitude that we use them for our benefit, but we don't look after them, unfortunately.
Yes, ma'am. So we move to the next question, ma'am. What is the usual attitude of people regarding animal welfare?
What is the, what did you say?
Usual attitude of What is the usual attitude of people regarding animal welfare?
People don't give it much importance, but that is, you know, I see that is one encouraging trend, is that young people, more and more young people are coming forward to join, and which never used to be the
Sorry,
case.
ma'am.
1 minute, let me just put you. Stop. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I'm saying, you know, so young people, I think, are carrying the torch forward. For a long time, it's been a very small, neglected field. But now more people are coming in. And in fact, every city, in every community, now you'll find there is a group of animal people, which never used to be the case. And even now in small places, you will find people who are getting together and forming groups to help animals. And what I would like to see is, schools, like you have environment clubs now in schools and environmental studies. I would like to see animal welfare being introduced as a subject in schools. And I would like to see kindness clubs, being an option in schools where you have extracurricular activities. They should have one for kindness, because I think kindness needs to be taught. It's not something that just happened. Yeah, there's a story about this princess in Holland, Princess Beatrice, and she had a dog. And one day she forgot to feed her dog. Her father, the king, called her ayah and said, remove the princess's food. So the ayah said, why? So he said, because she forgot to feed her dog. I want her to understand how it feels to be hungry. So she never ever forgets to be considerate to others. And Princess Beatrice grew up to be the best queen Holland has ever had. And from that lesson of learning to think about others. So I think when you teach kindness, it becomes a practice that you follow through all your lives, and it benefits not just you or animals, it benefits society as a whole, just to be considerate. So yes, I would like to see it in schools being taught as a subject, as a proper subject. I would like to see young people learn how to be kind and continue to be kind. The kinder you are, the more you practice it, the better you get at it, like any subject.
Yes, ma'am, that will be great. So we move to the next question, ma'am. Can you mention some positive and negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic on animal welfare?
Yes. When COVID happened, everyone was really frightened because, firstly, all the animals on the street who depended on, rubbish dumps as a food source, or leftovers from restaurants, leftovers from street vendors, now suddenly had nowhere to feed. But what happened? There was a huge upsurge of people, feeders, a whole community of feeders suddenly was born. And these people risked their lives, they risked their time, they made an effort. They went out and fed animals, and people who were never got involved before stepped up and started doing it. And we got, luckily, all the administrations, Mrs. Gandhi was able to reach out to all the administrations in India, and animal welfare was declared as an emergency service. And feeders were allowed passes. They were issued passes to go out and be able to feed. So it was taken care of. In my case, the Sanjay Gandhi Animal Care Center was open throughout. So my routine didn't change at all. I was there from 8 o'clock in the morning to 100 o'clock at night. And we were open throughout. I think we were the only facility in Delhi to be open all throughout both the pandemics. So life didn't change for me, but I saw a lot of positives coming out of the COVID, because when I used to drive, firstly, there was no traffic when I used to get to work. And secondly, the sky was blue. Thirdly, you could see dogs lying peacefully on the street without being scared of being run over, being chased, being hit, being hurt. So that was nice. You saw birds chirping, and more birds than I've ever seen before. So there were lots of positives about the pandemic, and it made me feel that if you removed humans from the mix, the planet would probably, say thank you. The negatives of the pandemic was, like I said, the fear that animals would go hungry, but people came forward to help. Apart from that, I can't think of. People became a lot more insensitive during the pandemic. The people who were intolerant of animals, you thought that they would become better, but actually within homes, it happened the opposite. There was more violence within the homes. So I think that was one of the weird things about it. People were more violent. People used to complain about feeders going out to feed. they used to have to face a lot of opposition. There were a lot of nasty RWAs who are really wicked sometimes. They have a little bit of power, but they like to, translate it into a lot. And they feel power when they're wicked to other people or other animals or something. So those were the negatives, were the RWAs, the role they played. But individuals came forward wonderfully to support animals, to feed animals, to make sure that animals did not get neglected. So all in all, I would say that the COVID was a positive experience as far as animals went.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So we move to the next question. What would you say about animal vaccination?
Vaccinations, you're talking about which vaccinations you're talking about? Which vaccinations are you talking about? Are you
all
talking
kind
about?
of
Are you
vaccination.
talking about? See, there are a lot of rumors and a lot of exaggeration of rabies. Rabies is a very, very rare disease. Okay, and
Yes,
the second thing about rabies is, although it is 100% mortality, it is also 100% preventable. So vaccinations are the best way to deal with rabies. What we want to do is we want to eliminate rabies. We don't want to eliminate mammals, because all mammals, including humans, can give and get it. So we don't need to eliminate mammals. We can eliminate rabies through a vaccination. The vaccination is 100% proof. If you have a vaccination, you are 100% immunized against rabies. So with dogs, for example, since we live with dogs, the best way to do is for them to get an annual vaccination. Once a dog is vaccinated, even if he bites you, you don't need to get a rabies shot or a rabies course of injections. He just needs to be immunized. The second thing is with other vaccinations, it's very, very important to get what is called a 9-in-1 or 7-in-1 or 6-in-1. This covers two very, very dangerous viral diseases called parvo and distemper in dogs. So parvo is a gastric disease. It causes vomiting and diarrhea. And dogs cannot eat during that time and they can die, especially it affects puppies. So it's very important to protect them from that. And you get it at the age of 45 days. At 45 days, puppies can be immunized. The second disease is distemper. And that is a neurological disease where the dog can hardly breathe. He starts twitching, he loses motor control. And that's a much worse disease than parvo even. It's a 21-day self-limiting disease, but it is very dangerous and it kills almost 50% of its victims. So it's very important to get puppies vaccinated and adult dogs on an annual basis for 7-in-1. So I would say those are the most important vaccines, these three. One is anti-rabies, one is the 7-in-1 for parvo and distemper. These are the three main vaccines. With regard to cattle, you have foot and mouth disease. They need to be inoculated against that. So with cats, you have something called TRICAT, which you need to get an annual injection for that. So yes, vaccinations are important, but do not get vaccinated unnecessarily. If a dog licks you, you don't have to get a vaccination. If a dog barks, you don't have to get a vaccination. If a dog jumps, you don't have to get a vaccination. If a dog scratches, you don't have to get a vaccination. Okay, so don't be panicked into getting vaccinations. It's very rarely that you'll need a vaccination. And if the dog is immunized, you never need a vaccination after that. So.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can you tell about the sterilization of animals? Sterilization of animals.
The sterilization program. The sterilization program is mainly been adopted for dogs. It's called the ABC program, Animal Birth Control. It was introduced in 2001 in India. And it was introduced through the municipalities. The municipal corporations are required to sterilize and vaccinate dogs and replace them in the same area. So they are picked up from an area, taken to a facility where they are operated, and then they are returned after 3 to 5 days. When the wound heals, it is a major operation for the dog, especially for females. And after 3 to 5 days of being under the care of a doctor, they come back and they should be returned to exactly the same place as where they were picked up from. So there are several precautions for people to take with this program. One is if you know the dogs in your area and they are picked up, they are come to be picked up for sterilization, please take photographs of each one of the dogs who are going, keep a record of which day they were picked up, get the name and number of the facility to which they are going, and keep in touch with the doctor there, give your name and number, say if there's any problem, call me. When the day the dogs are to be released, inform me so I can receive them back safely. So we need to be very responsible for this program. It's not enough to say, just sterilize them and leave them anywhere, or sterilize them and leave them early when their wounds are raw and the stitches open, then they will suffer and die on the street. So it needs to be a very well implemented program. It's an excellent program, but the implementation needs to be as good. So we have to ensure better implementation. At the moment, the program is not being well implemented. Some places are doing it good, but most places are doing it very badly because a lot of people look upon it as a way to make quick money. So they form a group and they say, we'll do the sterilization, but they neither know the operation procedure properly, neither do they keep records properly, neither are their staff trained in catching dogs. So as a result, the dogs suffer horribly. They are caught in a cruel manner. They are operated badly. They are released without proper care. They come back onto the streets and they die miserably. So, that is completely the wrong thing to do. If we are going to run ABC programs in India, we have to have trained staff, we have to have responsible doctors, and we have to have a very, very vigilant municipality. So that are the three things that are vital for the animal birth control program. But on the other hand, the benefits from the program are enormous. The animal birth control program doesn't just control numbers. It also ends any kind of biting. There are three main reasons for biting. One is during mating, when dogs become excitable. Second is when females give birth, they become protective about their puppies. And finally, it's from territorial aggression, because when dogs go into each other's territory, they fight with each other, and then that fighting spreads and becomes a concern for everybody. So what does the ABC program do? Since males are sterilized, there's no mating and they don't become excitable. Since females can't have babies, they don't have to become protective, so that they don't need to do that. And thirdly, because dogs are replaced in exactly the same areas, there's no territorial fighting. So the ABC program controls numbers and ends biting. So you have no fights, no bites, no babies, no rabies. So it's actually a very good program.
Great, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So we move to the next question. How we can say animal welfare is human welfare?
In every way. You consider it from the basics. If we didn't have earthworms, we wouldn't have any fertile soil. If we didn't have camels, you would have no life in the desert. If you didn't have butterflies, we would have no flowers. If you didn't have monkeys and birds, there would be none of the trees that we see. We wouldn't have any of those. And without trees, there would be no forests. Without forests, there's no rain. Without rain, there's no water. And without water, there's no life. So it's not animals who need us, but we who need animals. Every single animal, from the smallest creature to the biggest, serves as a protection for humans. Even your cockroaches, the ones you say chi 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 to, even your cockroaches, look what they do for us. They clean up our nalis. Our sewers would be full of dirt if it wasn't for cockroaches. So next time when you see a cockroach, please don't reach for your rid or your hit or something. Leave the cockroach to do his valuable work. He's helping us. Every single animal helps humans. Now, a long time ago, when we had tigers were endangered, so the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, started something called Project Tiger. What did Project Tiger do? Project Tiger did only one thing. It demarcated some forests and said, these are no-go zones. There'll be no temples, no tourism, no timber. Nobody can go in there. As a result of that, the forests regenerated. The streams that had dried up began to flow again. And every single village that was downstream from that forest started getting a 24-hour free water supply. Then when the floods came, what did that thick, strong forest do? It acted like a check. And all the villages downstream got saved from the flood. So we set off to save the tiger, but who did we actually save? Ourselves. And that's the same with every single time. Whenever we help an animal, we help ourselves. So when you see an earthworm that's stuck on the pathway, if you pick up that earthworm and put him back in the ground, you are helping yourself, not just the earthworm. Every time you save an animal life, you are helping yourself. So this is the most important lesson we need to understand. When you help an animal, you help yourself.
Okay, ma'am. Great, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So we move to the next question. Um, can you mention your steps for animal welfare during COVID-19 pandemic?
Can we what? Can I mention what? What was the thing?
Can you mention your steps, your work for animal welfare during COVID-19?
The steps that we took. You want to know what all we did for animals during? Well, we issued passes for all feeders so that they could be able to go out and feed animals. We provided food to a lot of animals. I remember I used to bring rotis and chara for all the cows on the street in a particular area. We stayed open throughout. So we had our ambulance going out for any animals in trouble, sick and thing. There were lots of animals who were abandoned during COVID. Families who got COVID, they couldn't look after their pets. So they would need help in looking after their pets. So we took in animals whose families had gotten COVID.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's some of the things that we did during COVID. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Great, ma'am. Okay. How, in your opinion, does animal welfare influence human welfare and vice versa?
Well, like I told you, every time you help an animal, you actually help yourself. And when we talk about animal welfare, it's never about only animals. It is always the way, if we are, when you become compassionate and when you care for animals, you also become a more compassionate person to everybody. So it's only being kind to animals creates a kinder, gentler world for all. In fact, the the first child rights bill was introduced by an animal welfare person in England, and they pushed through the legislation to protect children. Similarly, when you look at women's emancipation, it is very closely connected to animal welfare. Women are the main people in animal welfare, and most of them, fight for women's rights, they fight for animal rights, they fight for child rights. People who care about animals basically are people who care about the weak, the defenseless, and those who need help the most. So you will find the same thread of compassion that goes throughout. So whenever you're helping animals, you are actually creating a society that protects the weakest links. And everybody benefits from that, be it animals, be it children, be it women, the elderly, the handicapped. So that is the kind of world we need to look for. And that is why animal welfare is so important, because when you look after animals, you are looking after the weakest creatures on earth. And that kind of compassion spreads to other weaker sections as well.
Yes, ma'am. Great, ma'am. Thank you. So what do you feel should the government and the public do for the welfare of animal as well as human?
Well, I think the government needs to do a whole lot more. At the moment, we have a law, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. Now, this law was enacted in 1960. And the amazing thing about this law is, as far back as 1960, our country and our government of that time recognized the importance of animal protection. And the law was so strong that in those years, in 1960, the punishment for animal cruelty was rupees 50. 50 rupees in 1960 was the equivalent of what 50,000 rupees is today. So unfortunately, that law has still not been changed. In today's day and age, the punishment for animal cruelty remains rupees 50. So we have not amended that law. This law is currently being amended and it is lying there to be passed by Parliament. So the government needs to pass this amendment very quickly. So that's one thing the government can do. The second thing the government can do is all its veterinary centers. You know, there are veterinary centers on paper, but on ground, they barely exist. All the government vets sit in offices. They don't go to the clinics. They don't know how to deal with animals. They don't like their jobs. They don't do the work. So they are taking money from the animal welfare sector, but without doing anything for the animals in return. So we're paying from, from the government side, the government is paying people to do nothing. And there's no accountability. Since animals can't complain, there's nobody to say that, there's nobody sitting in this clinic. Even though the clinic exists on paper, it doesn't exist on the ground. So that's one very important way the government can help, is by actually getting more accountability into the clinics that they run and they are spending money on, and they are wasting their money. They are paying vets who don't work. They are buying medicines that don't exist. They are using land which doesn't work. So those are a colossal waste of government resources, and it's shameful that the government should allow this to happen. So that's another way that the government can help. The third way is the government to be proactive and to actually create better services. If you have mobile ambulances by the government running from every district, like you have mobile ambulances for people, we need ambulances for smaller districts where there are no veterinary facilities. Now, in those places, you need government mobile ambulances, and the government can easily do it. Small places, little villages where they use animals. There are horses that carry them. There are mules that work for them. There are donkeys that are there. They use cattle for their fields, agriculture. They use oxen to carry their loads. So they're using animals. But once that animal gets sick, they have no access to any medical care. So the government needs to step in and provide medical facilities to all the little places in India that have no medical facilities otherwise. So that is a huge way the government can help. And as far as the public is concerned, the public needs to support animal welfare, to pressure the government for better facilities for animals, to learn about animals, to care better for themselves, to be able to report cruelty to animals. When somebody sees another person hitting or hurting an animal, never ignore it. We have the laws to protect animals. What we need is for the public to learn and use those laws. And what is very, very important to understand by the public is that cruelty to animals never stops there. Somebody who's cruel to animals will also be cruel to other weak elements of society. They'll be wicked to children, they'll be wicked to women. In America, in fact, they have recognized this. They know that people who are cruel to animals are the ones who also are guilty of domestic violence, child abuse, arson, rape, and many, many other wicked crimes. So they never take animal crimes lightly. They have registers and they track animal abusers. So this is something our public needs to understand, that never dismiss animal cruelty as a little thing. It's a very, very serious offense, and you need to understand it. And when you see a child, especially, being cruel to animals, you must stop him there. Do you know that all serial killers started their careers by abusing animals. The man who murdered this famous designer, what's his name? Some designer who was very famous who was murdered. This murderer used to go to the beach on Sundays and he used to burn crabs' eyes with cigarette butts. And this is the kind of cruelty every single Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy. You look at our own Nithari killer, the one who used to murder children and women and eat them. He did the same thing as a child. He used to kill animals. His whole house has got photographs of him with animals he has shot and killed as a child. And his parents, thought it was a great thing and they encouraged him in that. And what did he become? He became a serial killer and he killed children and women. So we must never ever take animal welfare, animal cruelty lightly. If you are cruel to animals, it is sure that you will be cruel to people as well. So punish animal cruelty, correct it, remedy it, never ignore it. So the public needs to understand that. You look at Salman Khan, when he killed a deer, if he had been punished at that time and sent to jail for 5 years, like the law says, he may not have run over those people in his car and killed them just a couple of years later. Yes, so he should have been punished the first time when he indulged in something, and then it would have taught him a lesson not to do it again. But because he did not get his punishment, he went on to repeat the crime, and this time his victims were humans. So never ignore cruelty to animals. It is not an innocent fun. It is not boys will be boys. No, boys will be criminals if you don't check them. So always stop a child from hitting and hurting an animal.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your words. So we move to the last question, ma'am. Any message that you want to send out to our viewers?
Yes, I'd like to tell you, animals have no voice. They have no choice. They have only one friend, a human who is empathetic to their plight. And you can be that friend. You are never too young or too old to help animals. You are never too rich or too poor. You're never too busy or too idle to help an animal. So wherever you are, with whatever you have, please help an animal. You can put out bird seed every day, bajra, and water in your balcony or your roof or your garden. Put out that for the birds every day. More birds die of thirst in summer than for any other reason. You can turn vegetarian. As a vegetarian, you save 300 animal lives and 1 acre of trees every single year. You can adopt an Indian dog from off the street. That's a wonderful way to help. You can learn and use the laws. That's another way to help. Don't fly kites. That kills birds with the string, cuts their throats and their legs and their wings. Don't keep an aquarium because it uses fish from coral reefs, and then the coral reefs die and our shores become unprotected and the fish remain prisoners in glass tanks. Don't go to zoos or circuses or wildlife sanctuaries. Leave them alone. If you love animals, leave wild animals alone. Don't use horses in wedding barats. It is a terrible torture for them because horses are nervous animals. So never put them into a band baja barat situation where there's loud music, drunken people are shouting and screaming and pushing and shoving and dancing and merrymaking. And that horse is so frightened and cold and hungry. So don't do these little things. Each one of us can help animals. The golden rule is do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If you don't want to be locked up in COVID, don't lock up your dog every day near the gate. If you didn't like being hungry, do not keep your animals hungry. If you don't like being in the hot sun, think of those horses that are just being tied up and left in the hot sun. So whatever you don't like, understand the animal is exactly the same. He feels exactly the same as you do. And if you don't like something, he doesn't like it as well. And it is within your power to help that animal. He can't do it for himself. He can't say, I'm hot, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm in pain. But you can see that and you can help him. And each one of us has that power as a human to help an animal. Animals, because they are the weakest creatures on earth, animals deserve our strongest protection.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your words. We are going to end today's session here. Um, so, humans as well as animals have the right to live on this earth equally. Humans and animals are interdependent. We should never think of harming animals. They should be helped as much as possible. Thus, only if we humans and animals maintain a balance in nature, the earth will become favorable for the living world. So, ma'am, how did you feel about interacting with energy?
I enjoyed the session hugely. I hope that whatever lessons that people have heard today or will last. And I'd like for all of you to practice kindness as a daily routine. Practice it, become really good at it, teach it to others, spread the word. And I've enjoyed, thank you for organizing it. And it's been extremely enjoyable talking to all of you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I don't know if that's part of your session or not, where the question and answers are allowed, but I'm open to answer whatever queries anybody might have.
Hello, ma'am. I would like to ask Rajeshri here. So, ma'am, it was amazing listening to you today, speaking so honestly about everything. And in Assam, mostly there are animal activists who have grown from scratch, like without any help, without any motivation from their parents, because here parents think that if you are working for animals, you're not earning anything. Like they take it in that they have the conception that why you're working for animals because you're not getting anything in return. So there is no motivation, no appreciation for that. So still they are willing to do and they are doing it. So ma'am, what will be your if you would like to say anything to motivate?
Absolutely. Firstly, I think, people who work for animals are a very special kind of people. Everybody can feel for their own kind of people. For humans who feel for humans, it's a very natural thing. But people who feel for animals have a greater degree of intelligence and a greater degree of sensitivity. So I think all of you should be extremely proud of yourselves because you belong to a really special community. You are brighter than everybody else. You are more beautiful than anybody else, both inside and outside, because the goodness shows in you. And when you say that, you're working for no money, that's not true. Now, more and more, there are options. There are ways to make a career out of animal welfare. You can become pet sitters. You can become dog walkers. You can become boardings, open dog boardings. There are many, many ways that you can actually do animal welfare as well as earn a living. So you tell your parents not to worry. Your child is not just doing good for others, but she's doing good for herself. Do gooders, in fact, do better. So you will find karma always kicks in. Karma rewards kindness. And when you do for animals, not just do you feel so much happiness and so much satisfaction inside. After all, what is the use of money? Is to buy happiness. But if you can buy happiness by being kind, what better way? You don't even need that amount of money to feel happy. So if the purpose of money is to make you happy, you can achieve happiness even without it. So tell your parents not to worry. You have found a better way to achieve the goal of everybody, which is happiness. And continue to be kind to animals. Learn ways to earn money along with animal welfare, working within the field of animal welfare. So there are options now, much more than there were before. You can become, a trainer. You can become an animal behaviorist. There are so many options now. So please look for careers in animal welfare so that your parents are satisfied, and keep helping animals so that you are satisfied.
True, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. We are going to end today's session here. I would like to thank you, ma'am, for giving your valuable time to us. Thank you for sharing your experience and knowledge to us. Thank you, Anajori, for organizing such an interesting session. Lastly, but not least, I would like to thank you all the respective participants for making today's session a grand success. Uh, with this, I am closing today's session. Looking forward to meet and hear more about your work again, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
ma'am.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. And I wish Anajari all success in all its future endeavors.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night, ma'am.